applications. So, and because of the sheer number of interest that we get from service providers. So more than welcome to send me an email around what your services are, but please know that's not an application. That's just generally letting us know who you are. But there is a formal process that we direct our potential suppliers to. The second requirement is that you must be a registered entity, obviously, and in good standing with the receiver of revenue. The third part, which is a trade membership. So we do understand, firstly, that certain parts or commodities or categories of services belong to associations or trade bodies for certain reasons. For example, I'll pick on plumbing. If you are a not registered member of the PIRB, it is a difficult requirement to maneuver around because you are not able to issue a certificate of compliance for a geyser installation, for example. So it is not a compulsory, but it is an advantageous requirement that you have. So if you have another one alternative to what is required by the industry, we definitely do look at it, and we then consult with our partners in the industry. If it's an acceptable body, then we proceed from there. Your BEE requirements, obviously, we need to be compliant. So we pride ourselves also on giving preference on 100% Black-owned businesses, Black women-owned businesses, and thereafter, depending on the commodity, the availability of suppliers and the pool, we then look at the lower levels as prescribed by the Codes of Good Practice and in all the other amended legislation. So this part becomes a bit of a contagious issue because you do have a higher percentages of level of Black women and Black owned entities in the EME and QSE space that require access to markets, but we can always discuss that in the Q&A. So it is something that we do pride ourselves in and we do definitely focus on. And then also the ability to accept a negotiable and competitive and fair industry-related rates and prices. So for the fear of becoming uncompetitive or discussing competitive, trade secrets, but it is an understanding in the financial services industry that there is a set guideline of what rates would be charged for certain services. But each of those guidelines are prescribed in each SLA in terms of that commands that particular commodity. Unlike the normal tendering process in government, we prescribe because we do a lot of market analysis in terms of what the cost of the service is in the industry at the time. And these get reviewed on an annual basis, and the requirements will differ from one financial services member to another. Also, we require companies then to also have liability cover in place, understandably because we are sellers of short-term insurance for motor and property. Therefore, if you are going to be conducting repairs on someone's property and something goes wrong, we need to ensure that you are able to claw back to some sort of insurance that you have as a business should something go wrong in terms of workmanship, etc. So this is a standard requirement across the board. These products vary from your professional indemnity to your motor trade insurance product. As I've said, it varies in terms of the line of business that you are in. You must at least have 3 trade references as well. It says at least, so we're not saying it's a must. And then the 8th part, there is a prior requirement in terms of us as an entity that we need to comply with. So we do make the statement quite prevalent in all our documents that we do conduct credit checks and other reference checks. So there are 2 that we conduct. So we do check your credit status in terms of your credit bureaus that are available in the country, but you must consent to that. So there is a consent box in our forms. The second part is we do then verify your standing as a service provider with the Insurance Crime Bureau, where all insurance companies, including banks, are subscribed members to, and any transgression by a supplier, that is deemed to be fraudulent or otherwise gets listed on this database, we then cross-reference the directors in the company against this particular database, the way we then conduct those kind of checks. So it performs similar function to a credit bureau in terms of any listings that are negatively impacting the directors or the owners of the entity. And then we then discuss the findings if they are adverse with the respective directors and members of that particular company. The ninth requirement is that then there is a standard terms and conditions agreement that is issued and for a minimum of 1 year. So there's a difference. There's one, there is a contract that is valid for a period between 3 to 5 years, depending on the commodity or the service. And then there are annual terms and conditions that as partners we look at annually. So rates is one of the things that we discuss, because we do know that things happen within the year. So some directors leave the company, or the company gets dissolved, or whatever the case might be. So these reviews are conducted on an annual basis at the anniversary of the contract. So each anniversary year, there will be a review of these terms and conditions where both parties then get involved. And then the last part is then once all of these 9 requirements have been satisfied, we then send you a link to where to access your profile. You create, basically it's an online application where you complete all the requirements, you attach the necessary documents that we need, and then we then review the applications. There is a forum that sits on a monthly basis where these decisions are taken. As I've said before in the beginning of my presentation, we look at the supply, firstly demands, so what type of service is it, how many suppliers we have in that particular commodity, our customer requirements as well are at play. If it's a new service, is it something that the company is prepared to invest in, et cetera, et cetera. So those things are guided by those principles, and then this particular committee then will then make the decision to accept or decline the application. So it's on that basis that there's various reasons why the application will be accepted or declined. And this committee is made up of the operational people in the business that actually will use the services, and also other stakeholders that have got a vested interest in onboarding of suppliers. And then the type of services that we need. So generally, I do get questions a lot about what kind of services do insurance companies use, and people get quite surprised about what we actually procure. So these are the kind of services that we normally source, but they are not limited. So I just decided to give you kind of a list of what we have currently. So we work with 2 spaces. We work with either repairing, or we would source repair work, or we source replacement work. So building services is restorative work. So we don't necessarily construct buildings from scratch. However, we respond based on the policy. So if the claim is a total loss, there's a fire in a building, or one of our customers experiences a fire, and there's a need for us to then restore the building, to what it was before, then we would then source this kind of services, plumbing services, flooring, glaziers, electronic or electrical repairs in terms of your security equipment, steelworks, roofing, furniture, appliances, communication devices, laptops, computers, cell phones, loss adjusting services. That's in terms of your property type of losses. And then on my right would be the panel beating work from a motor perspective, your motor assessing, tracing services. So this kind of tracing is where you're tracing, not necessarily tracing customers, but you're actually tracing vehicles, particularly stolen vehicles. Windscreen repair or replacement services and glass. So this is your glass outside the windscreen, your side glasses and all of that. Tires, engineers, legal services, lawyers, in terms of third-party claims, or in terms of representing Bryte as an entity, if you're being sued or we are suing someone. Towing services, where we need to tow vehicles. Farming implements, so this is the repair of farming implements or replacement of farming implements. loss verification. So in some instances, it does happen that when a client will lodge a claim and we are not in agreement in terms of what actually was lost. So the client either does not have proof of ownership of that particular item, or one or two other conditions of the policy the client does not respond to. So these type of services, it will be somebody that is an expert in that particular industry would then say, look, if you have lost diamond ring and you have no proof of, if the policy requires you to show as proof of ownership, we therefore would then, based on your customer profile, we would then issue you with a similar type of ring, but lesser clarity, lesser sizing, and all of those other things. And this is the type of service that I'm talking about in terms of loss verification. And salvage, this is basically salvage services where the collection and selling of salvage, whether it's property salvage or motor salvage, where we require the services. And the last two are kind of newish services that we've also started being interested in looking, where you look in process efficiency tools, whether be it reporting tools or new systems to create efficiency in our claims processing. And also we're starting looking at robotics as well, RPAs, in terms of creating those kind of additional efficiencies. So in a nutshell, these are kind of services that we normally source, but they are not limited. I mean, every day you get new requirements from customers as you sell policies across the country. And this is our website. If you'd like to find out who we are and more about what we offer, and we can access us there. And yes, and that then concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has got any.
Thank you so much, Noluthando, for your presentation. So we will be taking questions now. You can either type in the chat or you can raise your virtual hands for anyone who has a question. So I'll just be looking at the chat to see if there's anyone with a question. Okay, Ms. Jody Lee, you said you had a question. Okay, whilst we wait, there's a quick question from Teboho. He says, just a quick one on plumbing affiliation. Please tell us that body one should be a member to. Which body should one be a member of?
Okay. So is that from what, Teboho?
Yes, that's from Teboho.
Okay. So Teboho, so when you are a registered plumber, there's the now I've forgotten this trade organization. The name will come out just now. PIRB, the Plumbing Regulatory Institute body. I think that's what they're called. So in short, they are the PIRB. When you qualify as a plumber, so this is on your individual perspective. As a qualified plumber, I think you do register and affiliate with them, and then as a business, there's other regulatory bodies. There's various regulatory bodies that you could be a member to as a business, but as the qualified person, you must be a PIRB member.
Okay, Teboho, does that answer your question? You can unmute and just ask any further questions that you have. Okay, he says it's been covered.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are there any more questions? Okay, Nolusando, from my side, obviously with the pandemic now, has there been any changes to your procurement processes? Like, is there anything that one needs to be aware of in terms of being a vendor at this time?
Okay, that's a great question. Thanks a lot, Nyasha. So, yes, I think everybody would appreciate that it has been a very challenging time for both ends, as a supplier and as well as a buyer of those services. So as a buyer, I've been kind of keen to see the innovation that suppliers have come up with. So the fact that you can't come to our offices because we are all working from home. So, you know, the ability for one to be able to present their solution virtually. I've been quite keen to see a lot of those, and I'm quite impressed in terms of the agility of suppliers. And I think from a professional perspective as well, professional services have also started taking a bit of a different turn in terms of also the ability to deliver services with limited resources. There's been a few changes in terms of, so I'll speak from the motor perspective. So for panel beaters, it's been really tough time for them because the number of people driving on the roads has reduced. Therefore, the number of accidents have reduced. So it's good news for us as a business, but obviously for them, it's not good news because there's lesser cars to repair. However, I have seen businesses coming out and saying, okay, so you know, we are proactively will be looking for customers to say, while your car is parked at home, I'm actually going to offer you a service for scratches and dents, for services to service your vehicle, to check for mechanical damages proactively. So it doesn't necessarily have your policy doesn't have to respond to a claim, but proactively I will approach customers and sell my business that way. I've also started seeing a lot of the glass suppliers offering digital services to clients, from a windscreen replacement to offering digital devices that will track you know, the performance of a vehicle, because the car is now parked for a long period of time. Therefore, you've got to make sure that your electronics in your vehicle are working effectively. So the two things I think for me is the proactiveness of suppliers to be able to respond to the time where they become, you know, highly entrepreneurial as well as innovative. And then the space of digital services has also started coming into play.
Okay, thank you so much, Noluthando. That answers it. And then Buso Radebe had a question. Please just unmute yourself.
Yes, hi Thando. I would like to ask, how can SMEs position themselves to be given an opportunity to be a supplier to corporate, despite existing relationship with bigger suppliers?
Okay, Mbuso, if you don't mind me asking, you need to be a bit specific. So what kind of services? Maybe I can then try and address it that way.
Well, most of the SMEs have been repurposing lately, and they're now doing PPE. Well, we know it's a monopoly industry, so we'd like to ask in terms of that.
Okay. So I'll speak on obviously on our behalf. So one of the key messages from our CEO has been supporting, you know, South Africa Inc. So for example, for us, PPE, which is masks and sanitizers, we had gone back to our supply chain and actually commissioned the PPE requirements for all our buildings. But because of, you know, our procurement size, so our PPE requirements will differ from a Santam or to an ABSA. But there are a few communities or projects that we support. So instead of going on a formal tender process, we then decided to commission a particular home that we've always supported, that also does this kind of work to generate income. And we basically increase their capacity to be able to generate masks for us. So it depends, I guess, in terms of your focus and also in terms of your current need as a business. Yes, PPE is now a new requirement for us, but it's not a major requirement because our buildings are at 30% capacity. Therefore, a bulk of our employees are still working from home. However, our policies are still responding. So our clients are still claiming. So our business is still continuing. So the same services that we have required before lockdown are still required. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. So in terms of your positioning, for me, is I think I've articulated in terms of what we do, what kind of services are needed from an underwriter perspective, and also how to approach Bryte. I'm happy to share my details. You know, Yasha can give you my email address and my direct number, and happy to share, you know, all that information, and then you can apply. We do look at SMEs. I think that it was probably my second slide on our main focus. We are a level 1 BE contributor. So therefore, we definitely don't have a choice in the matter. We do focus on Black-owned businesses and Black women-owned businesses. That's our bread and butter. And for us to acquire more services, it obviously depends on the need and the demand and based on the policies and how they respond. So I don't know if I've answered your question. But...
Yes, 100%. Thank you so much, Thando.
No problem.
Okay, Thando, thank you so much for your presentation. It doesn't look like we have any more questions, but we will share your presentation with the SMEs, and then if anyone has further questions, we'll provide them with your details and they'll be able to contact you.
Thank you, no problem.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.